It's a disease that evokes a fear that few other viruses can conjure. And with a survival rate of just 50% of those that it infects, it's hard to look at an Ebola epidemic with hope. But talk to the people in the countries that have had an outbreak, and hope is the one thing that they need. That and pragmatism in dealing with Ebola. And Uganda's past with Ebola and another hemorrhagic fever, the Marburg virus, shows a practiced, pragmatic approach to dealing with the virus through prevention. Follow the heavy traffic in downtown Kampala and you'll find this practical approach. Mulago Hospital has, at the edge of its compound, about an acre of space with tents that are reminiscent of those in any Ebola-stricken country. Inside this Ebola case management center, you walk past what, in a live situation, would be all the equipment and protocols needed to face and contain an Ebola outbreak.
Now beyond there, that is a high-risk area. That's where patients are admitted.
And Bileti Helen, Mulago's senior nursing officer, shows me every single one. From the chlorine containers ready to be used to disinfect those treating Ebola patients, to the thick goggles that make doctors and nurses in Ebola hot zones look like they're from another planet.
You have to dress full
again
in order to go there.
All right.
And when you dress, you can't really stay there for over 2 hours.
Why not?
It's too hot, it's very uncomfortable.
The case management center replicates what is seen in Ebola hot zones, and there's another one just like it in Entebbe. Have you ever dealt with a case of Ebola, and what was it like if you had?
Yeah, shortly when there was Ebola in where? Kibale.
Yeah, that was in 2012?
2012. There was a doctor who escaped from there to join his family in Uganda. And of course, he had already gotten signs. So we received him. Actually, he was a confirmed case and he was in that house. Yeah. And a confirmed case, as we continued to look after him, to take care of him, the condition was deteriorating.
Yeah. Helen is one of the few who saw him die.
I felt very, very bad. I felt very touched because that was the first time we encountered with Ebola in this camp.
Yeah. Tough and scary. Do people run away from you when they find out that you work here?
Yes.
Really?
Up to now. That's why I was telling you. You tell me, I'm working in a Marburg center, then they step behind from you.
But for her, the case management center is the key to getting over all of that. I'm walking through the high-risk area of a viral hemorrhagic fever treatment center here in Uganda. And even though it hasn't been used for years, at least 2 years, walking past the suspected to the probable to the confirmed tents still feels a bit eerie, scary even. And that's one of the things that medical practitioners say is fighting against curing people of Ebola and winning the fight against this disease. The fear of it in itself has people in the dark.
Don't panic. Don't panic. Kwa sababu wakati watu wanaingia mupanic, wanafanya mavitu mbalimbali haistahili.
At what is the Case Management Center's triage, a group of health workers are receiving training on what to spot in case of an Ebola outbreak. It makes for a grim lesson, but an important one. Now, the facility behind me represents what is Uganda's experience when dealing with the Ebola outbreak, having dealt with it thrice in its recent history. But where we're going, right behind the high-risk containment unit of this facility, is Katanga slum, what would be the worst nightmare of any medical practitioner if dealing with an Ebola outbreak. Looked upon with the eyes of a person looking for potential areas for the spread of Ebola, an informal settlement like this feels like the sort of place where Ebola transmissions would thrive, until you get to the local pharmacy. Here, the attendant knows what to look for should someone walk into her place exhibiting symptoms.
Kale, you can see signs vomiting. Vomiting has some blood. Then dilating. Then the diarrhea can be contains like over blood passing.
Blood passing in the diarrhea.
Yeah.
A consistent campaign has seen to it that locals here are able to pick up on the signs and symptoms of Ebola and know what to do. Uganda's experience with Ebola has had the effect of imparting important knowledge on how to avoid it. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, public information also extends to what one should do in case they come into contact with a person exhibiting symptoms of Ebola.
Wakati Ebola inaingia Mkenya, inatokea kule Afrika de l'Ouest inaingia Mkenya, kuku namna ya kuepuka ni kunawa tu mikono. Wakati unanawa mikono, wakati unatoka kuchoo, wakati ulienda kwa office, unasalimia watu, unarudia unanawa mikono. Wakati unaenda sokoni, unarudi unasafisha mikono.
Everybody accepts that it's going to take the world's best scientists to be able to get rid of Ebola in the laboratory. Everybody knows that. But here in Africa, where the virus is killing many people, especially in Western Africa, there are lessons that can be learned from countries like the DRC who have dealt with Ebola numerous times. Simple technologies like these could limit the spread of Ebola. For instance, this hand washing device uses a pedal to push out water so that you don't come in contact with a tap. Clean your hands, and that's it. That limits the spread of Ebola in numerous ways. The minister himself has friends who were able to do this to limit the spread when they were treating Ebola way back in 1976. But every now and again, you're touched by stories reminding you of just how indiscriminate the Ebola virus can be. Diana Namusoke Mutoro has traveled a long way to meet me. She lives in Mbarara in western Uganda with her 5 children. Her husband, Dr. Mutoro Muhumza Samuel, is with her as well, immortalized in the photographs she brought of their wedding day.
He was dedicated, responsible, caring, kind.
Samuel used to work in Mbarara as a general practitioner, supporting Diana and their children. But one day an opportunity to work outside the country came knocking, a good teaching job all the way in Liberia.
He left Uganda in 2010, in September 2010, under Marine International, MER, Marine International. Then he has been with the government for 1.5 years.
Everything went well. For 4 years, he would work and travel back periodically to see his family. But all of that changed very quickly after the Ebola outbreak in Guinea in June of 2014.
He's like, I've heard there is Ebola. And also being in Sierra Leone, is it Guinea? So he was like, and people would cross from Sierra Leone to the hospital where he was working because it was just in the border.
So when he heard about it, was he afraid for his own safety?
Yeah, he was. He was like, if Ebola comes, I know we are not safe here.
Samuel worked at the hospital in a Liberian town bordering Guinea. Soon, Ebola had crossed into Liberia. It got closer and closer until one day.
Definitely, as a person, I got scared when he told me that he had handled an Ebola patient who was a staff, and it's him who had put on her oxygen.
Their conversations would center around him getting back home from then onwards, and Diana hoped to see him as soon as she could. But because he had dealt with Ebola before in Uganda, he was an asset to the hospital. They would speak every day, but that too changed.
Now it reached a point, it's like, actually, our askari, he was renting with other 3 doctors sharing an apartment, one Ugandan and another Nigerian. So he's like, our askari, the security guy, he's away and our generator is down, so my phone might go off because of charging. So I didn't mind. Not knowing, I didn't know that by then he was already where? In isolation.
But one day out of these is one that she wouldn't forget.
So at around 5 of this side, that's because we are ahead 3 hours. Yeah, so they sent me a text that Dr. Sam has done. He's dead. Dr. Sam died at 1 p.m., Chief Medical Officer. That's it, yeah.
A few words that changed her life forever. Her husband was gone. Samuel was among the hundreds of health workers from Ebola-hit countries and volunteer nations across Africa and the world who have died while trying to treat people with the virus. Men and women whose sacrifice still washes over their families in waves of grief.
My youngest, because of Skype, when I hold the laptop, she says she knows we are going to see Daddy. She says, Daddy.
But above the pain, Diana admires the courage of her husband. Do you think more Africans should do what he did?
Yes, they should, but very careful.
And Africans are helping to lift the fog of Ebola through the medicine that they're helping develop, the interventions that they are teaching their people, and the sacrifices their professionals are making on the front lines in a war with the most African of adversaries. This week on Your Perspective, we're sticking with the story on Ebola, and we're speaking to Dlamini Zuma, the AU chairperson, to get her views on Africa's response to the pandemic.
And I think now is the time, though we have not completely eradicated every case, but I think it's the time now to focus on the rehabilitation, on getting business back on board. It's not that we are now going to go to investors who are walking away. It's just that business must now get back to normal.
Time to slip in some footage that we couldn't get into our edit this week. It's time for the X-Edit. Now in Kampala, trains snake about the city, ferrying goods from one end to another, as trains do in many parts of the world. But what we were focusing on the X-Edit tonight was not the trains itself, but rather some men who are hanging around those trains, siphoning oil from the train storage tanks. What struck us was how brazen these men were, even in the face of cameras just rolling meters away. It's just about time to wind up the show, but not before I say thank you to 2 people who helped us with a series from across East Africa. That's Steve Wemby from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rachel Mabala from Uganda. Thank you very much, guys. Now you can continue to chat with us about the show. What you like, what you don't like, what you're ambivalent about. You can tweet me on my handle @JohnAlanamu or on our show handle @KTN Perspective. If you want to watch past episodes of Perspective from last season and this season, you can go to our YouTube page and our YouTube channel. That's KTN News Kenya. We look forward to keeping your week in perspective, so tilt your head and take a different look at life. You might be surprised about what you see. I'm John Alanamu. Good night.